Alrighty, should we get started? It's almost 2 after here. So I am Christy, and I get to officially say this for the very first time on the webinar, but I am now the Executive Director for SSA. I've never got to say that before on one of our webinars, so I'm super excited. Welcome everybody to our September webinar. We have Lisa from McDonald's and Fred with Computershare here with us today, and they are going to do a webinar on eliminating quarterly paper statements. So and go ahead, use the question and answer feature throughout, or if you have a question, just go ahead and throw it in the chat and we'll answer those throughout the presentation. So with that, I will let Lisa and Fred do their thing.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lisa with McDonald's. And if you could advance the slide, Christy.
I'm Fred Pappmeyer with Computershare. I manage the relationship management team on the transfer agent side. And it's great. Thanks for joining us and look forward to presenting our material.
Hey, Christy, I'm not seeing the slide deck.
Second here, I'm having a little bit of a difficulty here. Hold on one second for me. How's that?
Perfect. And then just advance to that next slide, please.
There we go.
Nope, the next. There we go.
Whoopsies. There we go. Okay, we got it. We're good.
All right, we're off and running. So again, I'm Lisa with McDonald's Corporation, and the decision that we went to make this route and the processes involved, just want to kind of highlight those reasons. So back in 2021, McDonald's turned to Computershare for options regarding paper statements for reduction based on delays with the postal system, if you remember that time, increased in postage fees, sustainability, and checks not being cashed in a timely fashion. So these discussions led us to a combined initiative of first removing paper statements from Qs 1 through 3, and then secondly, offering alternatives to check and paper communications. And we launched both of these initiatives back in Q1 of 2022. Turning it over to Fred.
Oh, I didn't know if you were going to go through your options that you were provided, Lisa, or I can go into my piece.
You're good.
One of the things that that needs to be considered, of course, if you're going to switch over is, cost savings is definitely part of the return on investment that you'll want to calculate, and it will vary from issuer to issuer, depending on your registry size. In McDonald's case, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Lisa, but I think that you've got north of about 75,000 folks that are in the reinvestment plan.
Correct.
So the savings for McDonald's, was it was pretty substantial from not mailing paper statements anymore. And again, it will vary from issuer to issuer depending on the size of your plan. And then the other piece of that too is what we've seen is additional benefits that come along with it. So what it does is it really will promote digital adoption from the holders within the DRIP, because they will start going online and needing to review their statements online, and you'll get the benefit of holders registering for other output to be transferred digitally, if it's to be viewed digitally, like your tax forms or DRS statements, or managing their accounts and working through a self-service option through the web. So not only will you really see the savings from the DRIP piece, but you'll also see it from other output being suppressed and going to a digital work stream also. And again, this is the Computershare's product. You will want to check with the agent that you work with, to see what solutions they have from the standpoint of being able to suppress paper statements and promote digital adoption for your shareholders. And then the other piece that you'll want to look at too, if you're with another agent and there's the possibility of suppressing different investment plan statements, is check your plan If you do have a registered plan, you'll want to make sure that the prospectus, allows suppression of drip statements. And if the plan that you're using is what we call a bank sponsored plan, if it's sponsored by your transfer agent, the prospectus it will also allow for the suppression of drip statements too. So that's another piece that you'll want to consider along with the cost saving and the return on investment, because there will be a cost up front with needing to communicate with your holders to let them know that it's coming. That's kind of the paradox, is to try to, hey, we want to get people to, if we want to increase our digital adoption rates, how do we do that? Unfortunately, there's paper involved to do that, so and a cost involved. But there is an ROI on it. You'll just want to make sure that you run those numbers and see if it makes sense for you. Did you go to the next slide, Christy? And from macro standpoint, I mean, it's you're reducing your output of your paper, the CO2 that's involved, and printing paper and USPS, trucks delivering it, and you have your statement, what we talked about was your savings on your production costs and your postage, and then also, the statements are available to the shareholders, 24/7. They can get them online through a computer share through our Investor Center portal. If they're an Investor Center member, they can always get their statements there if they need to. And then with postage rates going up, they're doing an increase they're doing 2 increases a year now, and it's been pretty consistent in January and July. I think the last one was on July 14th. I think it went up. First class went up another 5 cents. I believe first class is up now to 73 cents. So if being able to do a digital type of delivery for as much material as you can, you're going to have that a fixed savings now, but with the postage savings going up, it's going to continue to cost, increase your savings on an annual basis with the postage rate increases. So along with the environmental benefits and sustainability that you get out of delivering statements digitally, the cost can be pretty substantial, cost savings. Next slide, Christy.
So how we launched the program. Back in Q1 2022, our mailing included 2 full-page, full-color printed letters. We determined that this design element would draw our shareholders' attention. One letter was sent to shareholders with their statement, and one was included with the physical checks. If you can go to the next slide, Christy. So this here is a sample letter that went with our statements. The letter focused on driving sustainability, greater efficiencies for the shareholder. We informed shareholders this would be their last printed quarterly statement that they would receive during Qs 1 through 3. We advised the shareholder they would still receive their year-end statement in December, along with a 1099 div if applicable. By enrolling in the electronic delivery, shareholders could continue to receive notice when their quarterly statements were available online for viewing. And finally, we offered shareholders both a QR code as well as URL enrollment to the Investor Center for easy online access. And for our shareholders, we provided step-by-step instructions, as you can see on this document here. Next slide. So this is a sample of the letter that went out with checks. And again, our initial objective for this letter aligned with our sustainability goal, but further research showed that we had many checks not being cashed in a timely fashion, as well as a significant amount of lost or replacement check requests. So based on these findings, we offered shareholders 3 alternatives with this mail piece. The first being dividend or direct deposit. The second was dividend reinvestment. And our third option was an email opt-in. Again, we provided shareholders with a QR code, URLs, and step-by-step instructions for all of these solutions. Next slide, please.
And, you know, we work closely with McDonald's on the design of those communications. And we have, I think we have a little bit about more than 20 current issuers that are engaged with the what we call the digital statement product. So we do have a lot of best practices that can be used. And you know, if our clients wanted to do a standalone mailing, or if they wanted to piggyback on a dividend mailing, we can do letters. We've got samples. We can do box slips. We can, you know, some of our clients have just done messaging on their dividend statement output. It really depends on, you know, how you want to form your communication to your shareholders, but we have several examples, and definitely, you know, we can help you provide, you know, whatever's in line with what your goals are for the communication. And we've got a lot of best practices to share. Next slide. And as Lisa showed, there's, you know, we've got letters that we've done that have gone with statements notifying shareholders of the change. We have a standardized buck slip that we use that can be, you know, that we can get input from our clients on changing that for insert or messaging on the statements. And then, you know, once we do the interaction, then, you know, once people are, it does go live, you know, they will get their, you know, the normal communication, letting them know that their statements are available on Investor Center. If they can, and they can go and get those when they've been posted. And then, as Lisa said, the first 3 quarters will be delivered digitally with the notifications, letting them know the statements are available. If they are signed up for email delivery, and then on quarter 4, then they will get a physical statement if they're not signed up for email delivery, and that'll be included with their tax form at the end of the year.
Right. So challenges that we encountered. There's 2 major, well, if you call them major, challenges that we encountered since we did the launch back in 2022. And the first was that our paper statement previously included a coupon where shareholders could purchase additional shares via mail. And I don't know about who your clientele is, but we have an older population, and they really liked that accessibility where they could just tear off the end of that coupon, fill it out, and mail it in. As we no longer offer the printed materials, shareholders now have 3 options in which to purchase more shares. First is calling our transfer agent. Next is going to the Investor Center landing page, and there are step-by-step instructions there for making a purchase. Or they can do a mailing with a letter of instruction in order to make those additional purchases. The second challenge we had was, you know, shareholders requesting a physical statement. And again, initially, we thought there would be some pushback, you know, again, based on our population. And what we found was that it was really a minuscule amount. To date, we have approximately 0.9-0.10% of our registered base that are calling out to Computershare. And again, every quarter they need to make this call so that they have a printed document. So again, minuscule. We really kind of expected it to be bigger than that on people who wanted that paper. But once they get accustomed to the fact that they're not having it, they seem to really, you know, fall in line and are going the digital route, which is great to see. Next slide, please. So of course, savings realized. You know, as with all changes that anyone makes, you want the data that's going to back up both the processes as well as to evaluate your success. So during that first year, McDonald's reduced paper and envelopes by 50%, which aligned with our sustainability goal. And we also had a 20% reduction in our annual expenses due to not making these massive mailings. Since full implementation, which then went to 2023, because we had to do that initial mailing in Q1 in 22, we've only sending out a mass statement during Q4. So this has allowed McDonald's to reduce paper and envelopes by 75%. And we've realized a 30% reduction in expense off our annual contract. And then lastly, back to Fred mentioned about, the e-communication and enrollment, and we've had an uptick of 3% since we launched these programs.
Yeah, and the McDonald's experience has been pretty consistent with the other 20 or so issuers that have adopted this. That's always one of the concerns is the feedback from the shareholders and a change in service and how that's going to impact calls into the company or any complaints, but it's really been de minimis. It's been a handful. For some of our issuers that have tens of thousands of folks in the plan that have had the change put in place, and it's really just been a few folks that have come in and said, "Hey, I need a statement." So it's really been pretty seamless. The one thing that you want to consider is when you're going through these conversations internally is to make sure that your other partners within the organization are aware of the change. So if it's your investor relations group or you're in your legal, and to have talking points or FAQs. So if you do get calls within the organization or emails of about the change, that that you have the information that you need to answer those inquiries. But it's, again, to Lisa's point, it's really a non-event. And then they can always get a paper statement if they do request one. And it's pretty straightforward. It's we go through the planning process with the client, decide on the communication, how it's going to be delivered. That message is going to be delivered to the shareholders. Look at the dates when we can do that messaging and turn on the solution. Usually, most makes sense of like doing it with a dividend mailing to be able to piggyback that communication and save on cost. And then once it's implemented, then the first 3 quarters of the year will be there'll be no printing output. The statements will be delivered via a digital channel and available on Investor Center, and as holders enroll and they can access those statements. And then year end, they will get the one hard copy statement that will have a summary of their dividends paid, reinvested throughout the year, along with their tax form. So it's pretty painless. And the feedback that we've gotten is it's been not only positive for the issuers and the cost savings, but it is driving additional digital adoption. And it's the shareholders have been pretty static in the response. We haven't had a lot of negative. We have really had little or no negative feedback from the shareholders. So it's really been a good experience over the last few years since we've implemented it. And I think that's all we got. Lisa, do you have anything else, or we can see what questions we got?
Yeah, it looks like there's one question in the queue.
It says, are there any escheatment or RPO related consequences to this change?
There's not, because we are sending a statement out annually. So there is a chance for, some states do have escheatment guidelines based on return mail, so lost shareholders. So we are communicating at least annually with shareholders if they're not signed up for e-delivery. So there's no impact from an escheatment standpoint.
Yeah, and I would say to that point with our, second initiative on this, which was pushing the direct deposit or the dividend reinvestment, is that, we're not dealing with the escheated checks that, the dividend checks, ours are currently at $1.67 a share. So someone gets a check for $1.67, they're probably not cashing it. And then they get into that pool eventually just by, lack of contact on their end and taking that initiative. So to me, I feel like that may even reduce escheatment by having the direct deposit or dividend reinvestment.
Yeah, it's really no different than your shareholders that are currently signed up for e-delivery, right? So, depending on state they reside in and the escheatment rules around their property, if it's a contact state or, if it's depending on the various states have different rules, but it doesn't impact the regulation that needs to be complied with. They're basically treated, the same process as an e-delivery shareholder.
All righty. Does anybody else have any questions? We'll do one last call here. Oh, one just came in. It says, have you seen an increase in the DRIP participation rate as a result of the change?
No.
Yes.
Have you seen it, Lisa?
Yeah, we've had an increase.
It really varies. It probably has a lot to do maybe with stock price and if McDonald's stock price probably the last few years has done really well, if I'm off the top of my head. So it will vary from issuer to issuer. I would think that would drive some of the demand to get into the DRIP.
All righty. Any other questions? Go ahead and throw them in the chat or the Q&A feature if you do. One last call here. I am not seeing any. So with that, thank you, Fred and Lisa, for joining us today. We really appreciate you being here with us. We hope everyone enjoyed the webinar today. If you do think of anything else that you want to ask the presenters, if you need more information on anything that they talked about today, go ahead and send me an email and I can get you in touch with Lisa and Fred. We do have our October webinar coming up next month on rights offerings. The registration for that webinar will be available soon. And with that, thank you everybody for joining us. And I hope you guys all have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Christine. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.